Hello and welcome back to another Walking Dead video, and today will be my review for The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carol, Season 2, Episode 1, and I am so glad we have the show back because I've been really excited for Season 2, having the return of Carol, having Daryl come back after the first season, so phenomenal, and this episode delivers, mostly I have to say. However, it is not a perfect episode. There are some flaws in this episode, but the majority of the time, this episode is fun, it's enjoyable. So let's talk about episode 1 of The Book of Carol. And this episode really focuses on Carol and explaining where she is at mentally, what she's currently doing in America, and how she gets to France. And I definitely think that was the smart idea, to focus the majority of this episode on Carol. We needed to have it properly fleshed out, her whole journey to France, and not have it half done or have it spread out through multiple episodes. It needs to be a one episode thing, and they did it in this episode, and it's paced well, it's acted well, it looks great, it is phenomenal. They wrote this episode really well majority of the time. There are a few things here and there of Daryl. He kind of bookends the story. Yeah, the first couple of minutes with Daryl seems like maybe a couple of weeks after the events of season 1, and he's training Laurent. However, Lusang doesn't want Daryl to do that, and Daryl feels like he has no place in France and he wants to go home. And that is where we leave Daryl for the majority of the episode until the very end, where he comes back and we learn a bit more, but I'll talk about that later. So let's talk about the big section in the middle, the Carol story. And I actually written down some notes about this. So first of all, one thing I didn't like is the random people at the truck stop are calling the walkers walkers, and it's such a small minuscule issue, but why? The term walker is only used by Rick's group. That's why in Fear they called them infected until Morgan came around, and then the group that met Morgan slowly adopted the term walker in season 5 and 6. Why are these random guys calling them walkers? It seems like a Ryan oversight that the term walker is only meant to be from Rick's group, and every group has their own term for it. So we're going to look over that because that's just so tiny. But the next thing I do want to talk about is how amazing Carol is. I am really happy with Carol. She is absolutely amazing, and it's because we've got the Carol where she's smart, she's letting people assume things about her, and then she's just rolling with it. I really like how Carol, when she meets these truckers or people at this stop, shall I say, she's like, hey, I'm looking for this, and they're like, oh, mix girl, and she's like, yeah. And I like how she slowly takes control of the situation. She's very manipulative. My favourite scene in this episode is when Carol gets to Ash's compound for the first time and a rabbit sets off his trap. And Carol's like, you know what? I'm going to get inside the trap and pretend I set it off and I'm this hopeless old lady. Absolutely amazing. I really enjoy we're getting this season 5 I'm a helpless lady Carol, and she's manipulating people, getting everything together. Absolutely love we're getting this very smart Carol, because she makes this episode really fun and enjoyable to watch, where Carol is just playing people like fiddles, being like, oh, I'm stuck, help me, oh, I'm injured, can you let me in your base and let me sleep for the night? And I really enjoy Carol for this entire episode. She also uses Sophia, pretending she's still alive, to get Ash to do what she wants. She's able to manipulate Ash because she finds out that he has a dead son. She's going to pretend Sophia's still around and in France, so that she can manipulate Ash to be like, okay, we're heading to France to go save your daughter. I'm really interested to find out how Ash is going to find out when she lied and Sophia is actually dead and she did this all for some random guy. I really cannot wait for when Ash figures out that she did it for Daryl, not Sophia. It's going to be such a great plot. Hopefully, they don't kill him before that happens, because I have a feeling that Ash is going to die, because the whole reason they can't get back from the plane, Ash is going to die, so they can't use the plane. So, what's going to happen? I'm really excited for that. But the next thing, why Sophia now? It's been 13 years in universe time. Sophia died in 2010. This show takes place in 2023. Why is Carol now dealing with the guilt? It's really cool to see Carol have all these kind of flashbacks to season 2. We see Sophia come out the barn. We see the flower. Why are we getting this now? This should be something, if you're telling this for Carol, if you're telling the story, it should have been in something that she dealt with in season 3 or season 4 of the original show. Not season 2 of a spin-off a decade later. Why are we getting this now? It's really, really cool, but the more you think about it, it is just so dumb that Carol has progressed so much to only regress by like miles to do this random Sophia, oh, I'm guilty, I feel guilt, I feel grief about my daughter dying. Why? Okay, she's had many other children and they've all died. She's adopted many kids. Why is this all happening now? I really am a little annoyed, and I think it's lazy writing. We could have done something more interesting with Carol to have her in this bad mental state. Instead, you're rehashing a very old and very closed wound. And the only other bad thing I can say about this whole Carol section is the writing around the generator, because everything else is phenomenal. The writing, the pacing, the acting is great. And then you have this, oh, we have a faulty generator, and whenever the generator goes out, the gates open up. This is not Five Nights at Freddy's when you run out of power and the doors open. Should gates, when, you know, the power runs out, they maybe seize shut? It's really dumb that it happens twice, and the power goes out and the gate just kind of swings wide open and walkers kind of swarm in. It's really poor. It feels like, you know what, the writer's like, okay, we need to get Ash to get on that plane so that he leaves his home behind. How are we going to do that? No, we're not going to have Carol convince him or do some maybe nice speech or have some proper character development. No, we're going to have power generator runs out, gate swings open, and then bam, he has to leave because walkers swarm in. What? It's really dumb. I do not like that. I feel like gates wouldn't swing open when they lose power. They would see shut, or there would be some sort of manual lock also, not just, oh, bam. It's really dumb. I really hate. He's like, oh, sometimes faulty. It runs out 3 times and twice within 1 day. And this is just a very small point I'm making, and I might be talking about it for more than a minute, but it really annoyed me because it was something that happened multiple times in the episode, and I was thinking, come on, like, is there another way you could have walkers come in or bring, you know, some sort of tension? And talking about tension, one good thing, even though I didn't like the whole gate thing, this episode had me on the end of my seat. I knew that Carol was 100% safe, but there were some really good fights, and I really enjoyed when Carol was in the greenhouse and the walkers were coming in. She was having to throw like random things at the walkers, use shears, use a shovel, and I really liked how she was like trapped by the walkers. It really felt tense, and I was like, even though I knew she was 100% safe, I was like completely enthralled by the action in this episode. Absolutely amazing, I have to say. I really enjoyed the walker kills. It was just, I'm kind of gushing over how intense it felt. It was just amazing. But there are some other things here and there, and this might be some sort of weird point, but I noticed that this episode clearly takes place in winter or autumn at least, and it got me thinking, okay, so Carol left to go find Daryl in the winter or autumn, and she can't get over to France, and all this and that. But then it got me thinking, okay, but this takes place in the same year that Rick returned. But from The Ones Who Live, we knew that Rick returned in the summer of 2023. This cannot take place in the kind of spring or the winter of the first half of 2023, because The Ones Who Live takes place after the events of the Walking Dead finale, and the Walking Dead finale ends in spring 2023. So timeline wise, Rick has returned and Carol has chosen to go and do this Hail Mary with Ash instead of going back to the Commonwealth and using the CRM to get over to France. I know that the writers didn't know what the people, The Ones Who Live, were writing, so there was no communication, but if you look at what we've been given on screen, Rick is at home and has a way to get to France, and Carol chose not to take that way. It is a massive oversight in the whole world building of the universe that Carol was like, you know what, I'm not going to go and get an easy way to France. I'm going to take this really dangerous and risky way instead. But it's still cool though, like, we can't deny it. It was still cool seeing Carol get on that plane, taking off, and great shot right at the end with the plane flying away. Absolutely amazing. Moving back over to Daryl's plot, I got 2 more points left I want to make. One, the nest reminds me of Morgan, but way more zealous and a bit culty, with them being extreme pacifists. Laurent can't do this, Laurent's not ready, oh, maybe Daryl shouldn't be around here when we can't really trust him. And it's like, okay, something's going on with the nest. They're not 100% good guys. They're setting up some seeds here with the nest potentially being a secret villain or an antagonist in some way to somebody. We know that Isabel will have something to do with the nest and finding out something. So I'm really interested in that. And then right at the end, we get this whole scene with, oh no, Falou, Emile, and someone else, they've been imprisoned by Madame Genet. We need to go fight them. And Daryl sets up a plan. They all go out. It goes wrong. Daryl's like, screw it, I'll just do it myself. Shoots them all. Cool fight scene. Everyone's freed. We see Falou again. And then Madame Genet is like, you know what, Daryl? Deus Ex Machina, explosion, teleportation. And Daryl's like, okay, I'm about to kill you. Boom, she's gone. Really poor writing. It's like, you know what, we've written ourselves into a corner here with Madame Genet at the whim of Daryl, who's about to kill her. She's now going to teleport out of there so that we can keep her around for another 5 episodes. Really, really poor writing right at the end of this episode, I do have to say. And it really annoyed me that you could have done something cooler with Daryl and the Madame Genet scene, but no, you have her teleport. It's really, really dumb, but that's kind of the overall episode. And my overall thoughts of this episode would say it's a good episode. It's not great, it's not bad, it's a good episode, and I would give it a 7 out of 10. Most of the time, this episode is fun. It's just these small points I've just made, where the more you think about it, the dumber they are. So on the surface, phenomenal episode, but just has these issues here and there and here, and you're like, okay, not everything's adding up. But this is just my opinions. Please tell me down below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. But this is it for me today, so goodbye, peace out, and I'll talk to you later.